Who dat to the Who Dat Nation? Welcome to the Dome Patrol podcast, your podcast for the New Orleans Saints here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and Week 14's matchup between the New Orleans Saints and the New York Giants have went final as the Saints come out victorious by the hair on their chinny chin by defeating the New York Giants 14-11. This was hands down the most stressful victory I've seen the Saints have this season. This was so stressful in a game, well, not a game, a season that the majority of the Who Dat Nation has pretty much packed in. I mean, a lot of Saints fans that I've talked to, they really don't care. Of course, they're cheering their team on, but anybody with an ounce of common sense know that the New Orleans Saints aren't going to make the playoffs, win a division, or whatever. It would take 8 miracles and a half in order for that to take place. But at least the Saints, in probably the easiest game left on the schedule, going up against arguably the worst team, or the second worst, definitely bottom 3 in the NFL, the New York Giants, who are 2-10, well, now 2-11, thanks to this loss. A team that shipped off their best player. Well, they didn't ship him off. He just walked out the door this offseason with Saquon Barkley. They shipped off their franchise quarterback, who they just paid $100 million to just, a year and a half ago. And they have packed it in. They've packed it in. They just fired their general manager a couple of years ago. So they're done as a team. They don't care. The coach is probably going to get fired at the end of the year, Brian Daboll, and it's over, They're just out there to finish it off, to go through the motions. And they have an offensive line that is, a defensive line, I should say. Well, the offensive line is trash, but the defensive line that is built with scotch tape and bubble gum, with mostly practice squad players they just signed off the street maybe a week or so ago. You would think logically, even though the Saints have their struggles, the Saints will go in here and just mollywop this team. Mind you, the Saints won the game. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Saints won the game. But it took a block field goal at the very end of the game. I don't understand how it came to that. This was a struggle throughout. This team looks horrible. Horrible. I've never seen a team look this bad in victory in my life. I mean, they look horrible. To be 100% honest with you, the Saints did not deserve to win this game. I can't pinpoint anybody, with the exception of Brian Brzee, who came wanting to win this game. Yeah, you got flashes of players doing something here and there throughout the day, but nobody was consistently just high motor, going at it, putting their body on the line like Brian Brzee was. Brian Brzee was everywhere, getting sacks, deflecting passes, blocking field goals. He was doing it all, man, and nobody else came to play. You got Demario Davis catching an interception with nobody around him, and could have sealed the game. The interception basically sealed the game, but he goes down, gives himself up, instead of trying to run it back for a touchdown, or at least run it back to get closer to maybe try a field goal, and that doesn't go right. That doesn't happen. And it's like, what? Saints go 3 and out, give the ball right back to the Giants for them to have a chance to win the game. And they actually had a chance. They had 2 shots in the end zone where they could have won this game. And it's amazing to me, man. It's amazing that this game came down to the final second. And I knew it. I had a feeling in the second half, because every game this season in the second half, teams adjust. Saints don't know how to adjust, and they're sitting there looking like, what happened? What did they do different? They just did the opposite of what they were doing in the first half. and you can't stop it. It is amazing to me. Drew Lock, who didn't complete a pass until the second quarter, he finally got on board, or got in a rhythm, I should say, by throwing the same throw over and over and over again, and the Saints could not stop it. He threw the same pass every rip, and the Saints defense looked shocked when he threw it every single time. I can't make this up. Now, I am happy that the Saints got the victory. I'm happy, but at the same time, I'm a little upset because this. All right, the Saints are what? They're 5-8 right now. So, all right, you can kill the high draft pick talk. And so you're not going to get a high draft pick as far as top 10. All right, I wasn't too gun ho with that anyway, because in my heart of hearts, I believe that they're going to mess up the pick anyway, because they haven't picked right in the first round as far as as long as I can remember. And so that's fine. But are you seriously trying to make a push for this division? Because today is the last day for that. Today is the last day to have those talks about playoffs, about a division. Be happy with this win. Be happy, because from what I can see going forward, looking at the remainder of this schedule, this is it. Maybe against the Raiders, but this is it. Next week you have Washington, loss. Telling you that now. Week after that you have Green Bay, loss. Telling you that right now. Then you have the Raiders. Then you have Tampa, most likely a loss. That's it. That's it. And I can say that with my chest, because I'm looking at this actual victory that the Saints had, and they look bad. If you come with this same effort against any of those four teams remaining, that's a loss. Even the Raiders. So, I mean, I can only go by what you showed me, and this is what you've shown me. Not to mention, and I saved the best for last here, not to mention Derek Carr. Derek Carr, before his injury, before he went out hurt, Derek Carr is trash. Can we stop with the Derek Carr is a good quarterback talk? He is not a good quarterback. He is not a good quarterback. And I know a lot of people, oh, that's low-hanging fruit. The man's hurt. You're talking about the man. I've been talking about him since he got here. And so let's not pretend. And secondly, you can't tell me, looking at this game, that Derek Carr is a good quarterback. Derek Carr is horrible. I've seen Derek Carr on 4 different occasions miss 4 wide open receivers in the middle of the field. 4. And that's just off the top of my head. If I go back and watch this monstrosity of a football game, it's probably more than that. But this dude is horrible. Then he had the audacity to want to run the ball, try to get his Taysom Hill on, and got knocked out. Now he gets to lay up next to Taysom Hill for the remainder. I don't know how long it's going to be. It really doesn't matter. It does it, though? Because did you have any faith that Derek Carr was going to do anything other than what we saw today? If Derek Carr was any type of quarterback, we would have had more than 14 points today. And he has proven he is not the guy. The coaches have shown they don't think he's the guy. They don't put the ball in his hand on third down. Do you realize that? Go back and watch the game. Go back and watch any game. On third downs, they don't trust him to get it. They'll run it. In the past, they'll have Taysom Hill in there. Any situation where we need a big play, Derek Carr is not involved. That's telling. That tells you all you need to know. But whatever the case may be, Saints did win. The Saints did win today. Can't tell by my rant, but they did. They held on to beat the Giants once again, 14-11. But they did lose Derek Carr to that injury. We don't know exactly what the injury is in the fourth quarter. A play, and this is what I don't get with this dude. He didn't even have to do that. Okay, that's fine. He ran it. That was cool. But he jumped in the air, thought he was Superman, came down face first, And they say in his hand too, or his arm or whatever, but you could tell the way he landed flat on his face like a moron, and there was nothing around him. He didn't have to jump. I don't know what he was thinking at that moment. And it's sad. It's just sad. But the Giants had their chance. They had their chance to win the game. They had their chance to send the game into overtime. Kicker Graham Gano had his field goal blocked by defensive tackle Brian Brzee in the closing seconds. In addition to that block, as I said before, Brian Brzee is the MVP of the game. He also had a sack. I think that brings it. I think he had 7.5 this season, something like that. They said in the during the game, and he also had 2 pass defenses and a defensive effort to keep the Giants quarterback Drew Lock largely in check throughout the game. Defensive tackle Kalen Saunders, he also had a sack. With this victory, the Saints improved to 5-8, and it kept the team's faint, and I mean faint hopes of winning the NFC South alive, especially when you look around the rest of the NFC South, and we're going to go over that in a second. But the loss was the 8th consecutive loss for the New York Giants, who have yet to win a game at home. They almost did. This is probably the closest they got all season, but they have yet to win a home game this season. Tampa is currently in the lead in the NFC South. They are 7-6 currently right now. Atlanta, on the other hand, Atlanta is 6-7. They're just one game ahead of the Saints right now. They lost to the Minnesota Vikings today. Tampa won today. That's why it is the way it is. But let me take this moment to just talk about the Atlanta Falcons. This was the year, wasn't it? Wasn't this the team that was just gonna just run through the South, run through the NFC, and come to New Orleans to win their first Super Bowl here in New Orleans? I mean, this was the team. This was the year. What happened? What happened? Kirk Cousins, he was supposed to be the guy. What happened? I think Kirk Cousins threw 2 more interceptions today? No touchdown. Kirk Cousins is garbage. I'm laughing at this because I know a couple of Atlanta Falcons fans. I know Atlanta Falcons fans in New Orleans. It's crazy. I respect their boldness, but I know a couple of them. And going into this season, boy, you would have thought they were going 17-0. I mean, they had me scared. I'm not gonna lie, because their argument was sound. Kirk Cousins coming in. They got Drake London. They have Kyle Pitts. They have what's their running back? Brian Robertson or whoever it is. They have all these weapons on offense. Then they had Mooney. I didn't even know Mooney was gonna come and do what he did, but he's doing him. You know, they got all these weapons. They made some adjustments on defense. They brought in Justin Simmons. They have Matthew Judon. They have all these players. I'm like, okay. They fired their head coach last year, brought in Raheem Morris. Oh, we're in trouble. They are just one game better than us. One. Technically a half game better than us because we beat them. So now they got us once, but we got them the second time, and that's the one that mattered. And man, it feels good. Now I'm reveling in it now because I know the bottom is about to fall out soon. So I got to get my shots in when I can, because these next 4 weeks, it's not looking too good. It's not looking too good for us. But it is what it is. I live in the present. Going back to our game, Demario Davis, man, he did help preserve the win by intercepting Drew Lock. I think it was a minute and 40 seconds left in the game. That should have been it. But the Giants were able to force a 3-and-out and gave the ball right back to the Giants to give them one more drive. On the previous drive, that's when Carr went out with that injury. Jake Hader came in the game, didn't do anything but get sacked. That's the only thing he registered on the stat line. He didn't throw the ball, nothing. And so, yeah. But in the end, the Saints did come out victorious. The Saints scored on an 8-yard touchdown run by Kendry Miller, which was fire because he carried about 8 people in there with a little assistance, but it was a nice touchdown. He also had an 11-yard touchdown reception from Carr to Juwan Johnson in the game. Miller had this was his first game since the Chargers game when he went out hurt, and he was hurt before that. So it's good that he was able to walk off the field today after playing the full game. But he did look good. He finished with 32 yards on 10 carries. Alvin Kamara, he had 17 carries for 44 yards. He also caught 5 balls for 35 yards. Derek Carr, before he knocked himself silly, he was 20 for 31 for 219 yards. Johnson had 4 catches for 50 yards. Valquez Scantling had 4 catches for 51 yards. Going back to Alvin Kamara has 938 rushing yards this season. That's the most in his career, and he is close. He's only 62 yards, if my math is correct, from 1,000. That'll be his first 1,000-yard rushing season, obviously, being as though 938 is his highest ever. That's amazing that this dude been in the league for 10 years, and this is the first time he's gotten this close to 1,000 yards. Now, he's always had 1,000 all-purpose yards and whatnot. That's all fine and good, but he's a running back, and that's always been a knock on him. He's never had that glorious statistic for a running back, but God spare for the next couple of weeks, he should be able to crack that for the first time in his career. Until the blocked field goal, the Saints special team struggled all day long, and Darren Rizzi, boy, I thought he was gonna pop a vessel in his skull, man. If he didn't, I mean, and because that's his bread and butter. That's what he's a special teams coach, and the special teams looked horrible. Let's not forget the Giants did have a punt return for a touchdown that was negated by holding. That's what saved the Saints, because I think if that score holds up, Saints probably lose this game. I'm gonna be real with you, but it didn't go that way. But boy, Darren Rizzi was hot. I don't know what he was telling the punter, but either he wasn't supposed to point it or punt it in that direction, or put a little more hang time under it or something. I don't know what it was, but he was hot. And then you had to miss field goals, not one, but 2 by Blake Grupe. 1, I knew he was going to miss. It was blocked anyway, but 60 yards? Come on, man. But I told my cousin, we was on the phone during that play, I was like, he's going to watch he make this one. Because he'll miss a 30-yarder, but he'll make stupid kicks like this, but it was blocked. He also missed a 55-yarder. The punt team gave up that return, like I said. It was just horrible on special teams. Horrible. The Saints also had a fake punt attempt during the game that didn't convert, but actually I think it did. They should have challenged that because it was really close. Really, really close, but it didn't pan out for the Saints. The Saints on next week will take on the Washington Commanders in the Dome. I think that's the only advantage we have in that game, that the fact that it's at home. So whatever, but I don't see anything positive coming out of that game, to be real. But we do have 7 days to enjoy this victory. Let's go over the stats for today's game, or should I say today's victory over the New York Giants. Starting with the passing, New Orleans Saints leading passer was, of course, Derek Carr, 20 for 31, 219 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked once today. Drew Lock was 21 for 49, 227 yards passing, no touchdowns, and one interception. He was sacked twice today. Leading rusher for the New Orleans Saints was Alvin Kamara, 17 carries on 44 yards. Leading rusher for the New York Giants was Drew Lock, their quarterback. He had 5 carries for 59 yards. A lot of that was on that one big run at the end, that final drive, that 25-yard gain he got. I thought he was going to score. I'm not going to lie. I thought he was going to score, and that would have just been par for the course. All I could do was just shake my head, but they managed to push him out of bounds. Not tackle him, but push him out of bounds. Leading receiver for the New Orleans Saints was Marquez Van Cleef Scantling, 4 catches for 55 yards. For the New York Giants, it's the LSU Tiger himself, Malik Neighbors, 5 catches for 79 yards. Leading goal-getter on defense was Ago Amati. He had 8 tackles for the New Orleans Saints. For the New York Giants, it was Micah McFadden, 11 tackles today. Let's go over the team statistics for today's matchup. Starting with the first down, Saints had 18 first downs to the Giants 16. Third down efficiency, Saints 5 for 15, Giants 5 for 19. Fourth down, Saints were 0 for 1, Giants were 2 for 4. Total plays, Saints ran 66 total plays to the Giants 74. Total yardage, Saints had 292 yards to the Giants 325. Saints had 14 drives to the Giants 13. Yards per play, Saints 4.4, the Giants 4.4. Both had 4.4 yards per play today. Passing yards, Saints had 200 passing yards to the Giants 216. Rushing, Saints had 92 yards rushing to the Giants 212. Red zone, Saints were 100% in the red zone. They were 2 for 2. Giants were 1 for 3. Penalties today, Saints had 6 penalties, 40 yards total. Giants, 12 penalties, 112 yards total. Both teams had a turnover apiece, and time of possession was won by the New Orleans Saints, 31 minutes and 49 seconds to the Giants, 28 minutes and 11 seconds. Now let's give our grades for today's matchup against the New York Giants. If this is your first time joining the show, as always, I want to welcome everyone, not just the new listeners, but everyone who continues to support the show. This is how I do the grading system here on the Dome Patrol podcast. I grade all 4 units of the New Orleans Saints during the game today: offense, defense, special teams, and coaching. Round them up and give an overall grade of today's performance. Starting with the offense, the New Orleans Saints offense against the Giants gets a letter grade of a C-. It is it really should be worse, but I gotta give props to Kendre Miller. I gotta give props to our tight ends. When they were used properly, but a little bit more could have been done offensively. They got away from the run real quick. You know, this was a defense that was held together with Elmer's glued, man. I mean, it wasn't like this was the Bill Parcells 1990s Giants, man. This team is reeling hard, just like we are. We should know what they're going through, injury wise. They put that defensive line together last minute, and I couldn't tell. And this was the first time since week 2 or 3 that we've had all 5 offensive linemen on the field at the same time. All of them played today, and they look worse than the little piece together players that we had to deal with for the last 8-9 weeks of the season. I mean, they couldn't open up no holes for the running back at times. The pass protection was iffy at times. And they just looked unorganized, very unorganized. They didn't really look prepared to play. And this was the first time under Darren Rizzi where it looks like overall as a team, but offense especially, they just did not look ready to play. They get a C minus today. Defensively, they get a D. Not a D. I'm sorry, a C plus. They are the Saints defense is what it is you know you're not going to get anything different than what you saw today. They are old. They are slow. Um, we have no pass rush, none whatsoever. Our linebackers are old. Our secondary is very young and susceptible to just simple stuff. That turnaround, fade, throw, just, I mean, Kool-Aid, bruh. Kool-Aid must have drunk the Kool-Aid because he didn't know, he didn't catch the hint that they were just going at him in the second half, and it just did not register with him, and he could not defend that throw. Now, granted, it's almost undefendable throw. It is you have to throw it perfectly, and I give Drew Lock credit for this. Those were some really good thrown balls that turn around behind the back shoulder type throw, and he couldn't figure it out. Kool-Aid McKendry, he couldn't figure it out, but it is what it is. They did enough. They didn't allow them to win the game, so it is what it is. But they have a lot of work to do this offseason. I'll just put it like that. Special teams was close to failing today, but ultimately I gave them a D plus, and it's this is probably the worst game the special teams had in a number of years. It's kind of a shocker. Now, they've given up some plays, they've missed field goals in the past and stuff like that, but never in one game. Missing field goals, allowing punt returns, and just trying fake punts and all this here and not converting. It was just a horrible day to be a special teamer on the New Orleans Saints today. And Darren Rizzi, I understand why he was fired up, but my only issue with that, and trust me, I need you to hear me clearly here. I love the fact that he jumps on his players. That's something that was missing from this team. We had a coach that just stood there looking like a deer in headlights for 3 hours and like, I don't know what to say. But it's good to see a coach emotionally involved in the game, every aspect of the game. So I don't mind that. My only issue, he needs to do that with other players too. I know this is your quote unquote, these are your guys because you've been working with the special teams, but jump on Derek Carr too for making bonehead decisions, jump on well, he has. I've seen him jump on the defense too. But I don't see him jumping on Carr or nothing like that. Carr is not beyond reproach. I couldn't be the head coach because I would have cursed out Carr almost once a week. It would have had to happen, man. Because the dude just does bonehead stupid stuff. But yeah, they get a D plus. Coaching gets a C plus. Coaching, the team just didn't look prepared. And honestly, I should give them a worse grade, but I'm gonna settle with the C plus. I'm gonna give them a little curve because they did win, but they did not look prepared for this game. They really didn't. And if we would have played any other team in the NFL, pick one, we would have lost. If we would have came out there and played like this against Cleveland, we would have lost. If we would have played like this against Carolina, well, hey, Carolina beat us, so I can't use that as an example. Oh, but you get my point. The Giants are the worst team in football, and so even with you playing like pure dog manure, you still end up squeaking out a victory. But man, this was embarrassing, really was, because it should have been a just mollywhopping that took place in New York City, but it didn't. Overall, the New Orleans Saints gets a letter grade for today's performance against the Giants, a C minus. Yeah, they got to do better than this, but all this was confirmation. At least it was for me. that this team has a long way to go. Yes, it feels good. It feels really good that the Saints are 3-1 since they fired Dennis Allen. It does feel good that they're on this little run. That they're quote unquote trying to finish strong. And it does feel good that the Saints are putting forth a little more effort than they did when we were playing in that 7-game losing streak, with the exception of today. Today, not so much. Today, it was very Dennis Allen-ish. It was very close to me questioning, did they rehire Dennis Allen? Because they were doing Dennis Allen stuff and throughout this game. And it was like, man, come on, man, what is happening? There's no reason this game should be this close throughout. And it never once did this game get beyond a possession. In the third quarter, yes, it did. But that ended quick. Allow the 2-point conversion. Oh, yeah, I wanted to mention the 2-point conversion that the Giants got. Only the Saints would allow a pass that was knocked up in the air, 40 feet in the air, come down in between 6 New Orleans Saints defensive players and land in the one New York Giants player hand at the 2-yard line, and he run in and score. Only the New Orleans Saints. At that point, at that moment, I knew I would have lost money because I said we about to lose this game. That was the words that came out my mouth. I'm like, bro, there's no way this happens. No way. These people pulled within 3, and sure enough, they did. But in any event, yes, the Saints did get the victory today. God bless them. They are currently 5-8 on the season. Next week, the Saints will take on the Washington Commanders, who are currently what are they? They're 8-5 right now. I think they're on the bye this week, are they? Who they play this week? I think they're on the bye. It don't matter. But either way, they look good. They look really, really good right now. I know they had a little losing streak going on for a little while, but I think they bounced back last week when they destroyed the Tennessee Titans. But I don't foresee a victory there. Now, a lot can change. Now, granted, there's some factors going into this game. You have what's going to be the status of Derek Carr. Is Derek Carr out? The way he looked out. And honestly, as much as I rag on him, to be completely honest, you need to keep him out. What's the point of having him in there? I mean, at this point, you're not playing for anything. It doesn't make sense. So just take him out. Let's see what you got with Haynard. We already got a sample size of Spencer Rattler. Let's see these young players. Let's evaluate these guys and build from there. But Saints not going to do that. I already know it's wishful thinking at this point. But that's what's in store for us next week. But this week, at least we can revel in the enjoyment of defeating the New York Giants, and that the Atlanta Falcons lost as well. And so we have all of that to celebrate. But I'd like to know, what's your feelings going forward? Are you excited? Do you feel that the Saints, maybe this was just one of those games? It's a little hiccup, but the Saints will bounce back and take control of their destiny and make this push. Look, everything in me, well, I'm embellishing a little bit there. The who that in me would love to see the Saints go on this run and take control. And because the division is there. It's there for you. You're only 2 games behind first place with a matchup against Tampa coming up. That could determine the division between the two. Who knows? But it's a tall task when you have the Commanders and the Packers who are actually playing for something, who are actually in the playoff picture. And so I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but man, I just don't see it. But hey, anything's possible. I would love to know your thoughts. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show and comment on all of my social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Dome Patrol Podcast, your podcast for the New Orleans Saints here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this recap and reaction to the Saints' victory over the Detroit Lions, 14-11. The Saints are now 5-8 on the season. Can't wait to talk to you later this week as we preview the Saints versus the Washington Commanders. Oh boy, I got a lot of chills about that game. But until then, no matter what, people, I'm still gonna be screaming, "Who dat?"